Hello once again. Today I want to go a little deeper. I want to take time and really take a look at where we are today and how we got here. I want to do a teaching on generations and how one generation impact the next generation. And in an effort to cause us to look at our generation and our activities and see how we're impacting the next generation and generations to come. And so, with that being said, I want to also make a statement in the beginning here that I'm going to touch on some activities that may be part of your life. And I want you to understand I'm not speaking from a point of condemnation, because I was part of this activity, at least one of them, for a portion of my life. But after coming into the knowledge of the truth, then I was empowered and through salvation to be able to free myself from, or get free from these activities. But so it's not in an effort to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but to give you an insight in order to be able to make a wise decision based with an understanding on how it impacts your life, and it can impact your life and the lives of your children also. With that being said, let's go back and look at generations past. It's commonly thought that that our present day attitude towards sexuality and all was part of the baby boom generation and my generation, that we were the ones that got caught up in this and basically changed society. While we did bring it to maturity, we weren't the ones that laid the foundation for it. The foundation was laid back in the generation prior to ours. It's rumored that, I know it's a fact that these things happen, but it's rumored as to how it started, that in the Air Force pilots during World War II, they made a pact with one another, and they say that whoever went home from leave would look out for one another's family and see that everything was well with them, with their families. And also a part of that pact was that the physical needs of one another's wives had to be met. So if one pilot went home, if I went home on leave on that for 30 days, I would not only make sure my wife was content, then I would also make sure that the wives of all the other pilots that were part of this pact was being satisfied. Well, that pact, that mindset began the establishment of the diminishing of the marital relationship, the vow, the commitment of exclusivity to one another that between husband and wife. That began the diminishing of it. That began to lay the foundation for a more social attitude towards sexuality. And so with that being established, we move on to the next generation, which is my generation, and which was known as the baby boom generation. Well, during my generation, there was a very significant event that took place that helped perpetuate this new mindset. This was an outdoor concert that lasted for 3 days. It was called Woodstock. It happened in a portion of upper New York. And during this concert, there was various genres of music, musicians that came together and put on this concert. And it was an outdoor concert, and thousands and thousands of young people, including from these children of these people that lived in these suburbs and had observed this social activity between their parents, were part of this musical concert. And the concert was not, they weren't really prepared for this type of response, and for the number of people that were there. They didn't have adequate facilities, restroom facilities and bathing facilities. So a lot of things were done out in the open, and there was a lot of drug use that was there. And so it was just a change in the mindset that began to take place there. There was a marriage that took place at that particular time. So there was the marriage between the music culture of a generation and the sexual culture of a generation, and these two became one under this the music change that was being produced after that time, and from what was normal at that particular time, and the sexual attitude change. And so with this new change in attitude, that's when the hippie movement was perpetuated, and that's when the free love movement that spread throughout America began. Whereas, the idea of getting married wasn't necessary anymore. Why should we get married to be intimate with one another? The intimacy was looked at from a more social mindset or view. There was communities where people just lived together. Different couples would live together, and they would sometimes share one another's woman and one another's man with each other. It was just a more open mindset or environment that was cultivated. Well, during this culture, that culture is what I was stating in the beginning, what made the necessity for abortion and the subsequent introduction of birth control, because in this culture the man was as an advantage because he could be with as many women as he wanted to without thinking about being conception. But a woman was at a disadvantage because she had to be concerned about conception, so she couldn't be as free as she wanted to in her sexual expression. And so therefore, with the introduction of abortion, it mandated, that in itself mandated the need for a change in the law to provide an environment and an atmosphere where this new mindset could be fulfilled more freely. And so that was the need for the establishment of abortion and the subsequent introduction of the birth control pill. And so with that new mindset, there was also a different mindset in the acceptance of certain activities between a man and a woman. Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not seeking to tell you what to do and what you can't do or to bring judgment, because as I said, I participated in one of these activities myself. But at that particular time, that's when oral sex became common during that particular generation, during my generation. It became acceptable. Now, prior to this change in mindset, that activity, even by law, was called, by the U.S. laws, was called a crime against nature. But in the neighborhood where I grew up at, and amongst my peers and others, that was seen as, if somebody did it, they shouldn't let nobody know, because it was just seen as something detestable or something perverted. I remember my first experience with this activity and seeing it, viewing it, was at a theater that showed this type of movie that I visited with a friend. And that was my first time going, and I saw this activity, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. It just seemed detestable to me. And so I got up and I walked out of the theater, and I never returned. But needless to say that eventually, through association with others, I wound up getting caught up in the same activity myself. But again, as I came into the knowledge of the truth, I was delivered from it. But you may want to ask, well, what's wrong with it? Well, let me put it to you like this. It's transitional. It provides an atmosphere where the relationship between a man and a woman is no longer exclusive. And let me explain it, what I mean in that if a man satisfies his wife in that way, then, and that becomes the height of her fulfillment. Well, that particular activity is no longer exclusive. It's not only exclusive between a man and a woman. It also can be fulfilled between a woman and a woman, which provided the atmosphere for the transition into the popularity of the lesbian relationship, which became very popular during that time. And even during the women's rights movement, there was a lot of homosexual relationships or lesbian relationships. Because of the fact that the sexual activity had changed, then it provided a means by which that transition could be made easily, because a woman was used to being fulfilled in that manner, in a manner that a woman could fulfill her. And also with a man, if that became the height of the man's relationship with his wife, then the marriage, that sexual relationship was not exclusive anymore between him and his wife. That activity could also be fulfilled by another man. Not only that, during that time there was the introduction, I know it's been going on, but it became more common during that time, anal sex. And well, with anal sex, again, it's transitional because of the fact that once a man knows a woman in that manner, it's just a matter of transitioning to a man in that manner. So we see the opportunity or the environment or the culture being laid for homosexual relationship between a man and a man. Well, and that's exactly what happened. And there was a greater movement, and everybody started coming out of the closet about this relationship, which was no more than sexual experimentation during that time. And just like with abortion, the activity mandated an adjustment in law. And that's why we found ourselves facing what we faced even recently with the legalizing of the marital relationship between a man and a man and a woman and a woman, because not that the activity was justified, it's just that under the law of pleasure it had become justified. So we had to find a way to legalize it in the law. Same thing is what's happened with abortion, to make room for the activity. The activity hasn't changed. It's still a perverted act. The mindset has changed in how we view it and how we look at it under the law of pleasure, because under the law of pleasure, if it brings fulfillment to oneself, then it's justified. So we have to find a way to adjust our laws to meet our present mindset. And that's exactly where we are. We adjusting laws to every pleasure of man to justify our actions. Well, my question to you is, what's perverted now? What do you see as perverted now? What do you see as abnormal? We've seen our children, this generation, that's our children, embrace pervertedness as normality. We've seen oral sex, anal sex, and now we see the marital relationship being even further diminished now, in that we see married couples sharing with one another, meeting at clubs, just saying we're just having social sex with other couples. And there's a total change in the mindset of society concerning sexuality. Some may say it's okay, some may say it's not. Again, what do you see as abnormal now? And is it possible that the thing that you see as abnormal now is going to become normal in the next generation? Is a thing that's seemed detestable and perverted now going to become normal in the next generation? Is that what we want for our children? Is that the foundation we want to lay? I want you to understand that every generation is responsible for laying the foundation for the culture of the next generation. Now, we are walking in this culture, but we have an opportunity now to examine it. We have an opportunity now to address it and turn it back. We have an opportunity to change and to rebuild the foundation of America. It's not only a responsibility, it's an obligation that we have to restore a sense of morality, to restore a value to the marital relationship, to rebuild family values and family principles. It's an opportunity that's being presented to us now before we go any further, before we find ourselves in a situation where we really don't know how to turn it back, how to turn it around. Let's not hand our children this sort of pervertedness. Let's turn it around. We created it, we helped establish it, and we can turn it around. In my next video, I want to take a look at some of the things that we consider detestable now, so that you can begin to ask yourself, is it possible that that will become normal for my children? And is that what I want them to experience? But for now, I want to leave you with that thought to think upon. And until next time, I just want to say God bless you. And I pray that something that I said will cause you to think and to evaluate where we are as a nation, and to ask yourself, how have I contributed? Am I still contributing? And what can I do to turn it around? God bless you.